Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast.
Good morning. This is Tracy Hales Fast with Right On Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico. Today I'm talking with Kevin Honold about his book, The Rock Cycle. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Tracy. How are you today?
I'm great. So you're in Santa Fe right now?
Yes, I am in Santa Fe. I teach high school here.
High school. And you teach history and special ed, right?
That's right. Yep.
Well, I commend you on that.
Yeah, it's actually something that I've loved my entire life. So it's not always the easiest job, but
Right.
I do love the subject and talking about stories with kids. It's a good thing.
So the Rock Cycle is, as you say, a collection of essays, but it's so much more. I mean, there's memoir, there's philosophy, and all kinds of things in there, right?
I never really had too much of a overarching theme in mind as I was writing it. They just kind of appeared over a number of years, and after a while I had enough to put together a book. But I did hear from one person who seemed to think that there was a kind of theme there. I was glad to hear that because, a good book generally has something like that to keep it all tied together. But I didn't really have that in mind as I was writing these things down.
It does. It has like a coming of age. What did she think the theme was?
That person thought that it was kind of like searching.
Yes.
Just to boil it down to one word.
I can see that completely.
Human kind of activity.
You said you wrote this over a few years. Did you know at the time you were writing the essays that you were going to put them into a greater thing?
No, I had no idea of that, even to the point where I started to submit it. You just never think that anyone's going to take this seriously. It was just something that I started about probably in 2009 and finished up, got it ready to submit, about last year. So, I never really had any ideas about it. I just really enjoyed it. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together.
Right.
From what I understand of that, it's kind of the same satisfaction of ordering your ideas and putting people here and places there, and it's just kind of fun, essay writing.
And I was going to ask you about your arrangement of it, because it's definitely not chronological or arranged by subject or anything like that, but it seems to work and build on itself. So how did you make these decisions?
Well, I'm glad you made that observation, because I didn't really consult anybody about it. I probably should have. I just put them where they felt they ought to be.
Okay, right.
I wish I could be more accurate about that, about how that happened. But I don't know. I just trusting. I think so much of it is just trusting your gut on decisions when it comes to writing or any kind of creative type work.
I think so too, and I've heard other authors say the exact same thing, that it just felt right to put this here and that there, and I think it works. It's written beautifully, and I was really impressed with the amount of philosophy. So it seems like you've been studying philosophy for quite a while.
Well, yeah, that's just kind of a not studying it formally, but I have really loved to read it, and I'm not entirely sure why it's not part of our school curriculum more. I mean, like
Right.
K-12 or even in college, I mean, these questions, what is truth? What is goodness? What does it mean to be a good person? What is the nature of evil? These questions seem pretty important.
Yes.
And I wonder why we don't visit them more. Maybe because they're difficult.
Right.
But that shouldn't be a reason to stay away from those tough questions.
Exactly.
Especially now.
Right. I agree. I found it interesting, too, the philosophical look you took at finding seashells at high altitudes. That kind of threads through there a little bit.
Yeah, it was kind of something that I just wandered into this. I think it started with that reading Da Vinci's notebooks, or his notebook says they were compiled by an editor, where he mentioned the fact of noticing, inferring from the presence of seashells on mountaintops that the land, even at high altitudes, had been underwater, was an incredible leap of imagination that he did without a single tool or book or any kind of background knowledge, but just based on his own just kind of imaginative thinking, which to me is just kind of astonishing, and it just led me on to other books about that story and how it took so long for people to figure that out. Now, of course, he didn't publish any of that scientific work, so it remained a secret for another couple hundred years. And even when it came out, people didn't believe it.
Right.
Because it just seemed so counterintuitive.
But the ideas that they came up with were ridiculous in ways.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're hilarious on one hand, but also I noticed that some of them are really beautiful, like this idea of mountains as alembics.
Right.
That they're like the valves of the heat within the earth, which is just a beautiful image. And even though it's completely nuts and crazy and totally baseless, it still has a certain kind of beauty to it. Almost childlike.
It is. I actually thought that it was a bit childlike. Now, you've titled your collection here The Rock Cycle, and there is the element of your bicycle that kind of frames this. But why did you call it The Rock Cycle?
Well, it just seemed like it contained those two meanings. One, the geological process and time and history that I hope are come across as themes in the book. And the word cycle in it, so it has that double meaning. And that's part of the book too, taking long bike rides throughout the Southwest. So it just when I hit on that, I didn't have to think much more about it.
Right.
It seemed pretty like the obvious.
It works.
Title. Yeah.
And you're very self-effacing in here too, about just sometimes you just didn't want to go any farther, and beat yourself up a few times in here too.
Yeah, well, cycling is 90% of it, at least in my experience. I can't speak for other people, but it's miserable to be pedaling into the wind, and you're far from anything like water or shelter, and you got 40 miles to go before you can get to a place to camp, and it's just like, what the heck am I doing? It's just, I'd say 90% of it was like that. But then there are those moments where, you get to the top of a mountain chain in Nevada or something, and the sun's going down, and then it's like, okay, well, now I remember what I was trying to do. And
that's why you did it, right?
I don't know if that repaid all the miserable riding along the side of a highway getting sideswiped by tractor trailers, but it turned out some essays that I was happy with, so
there you go.
There's that.
So you also have been writing poetry in Ministries Walking, and you wrote a novel, Molly.
That's right. Molly will come out from Autumn House Press, which is in Pittsburgh. That'll come out, I think, in October.
And it's already award-winning.
Yeah, it won the Autumn House Press Prize last year.
Well, that's great. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what Molly is about?
Molly is about, it takes place in New Mexico, in a kind of a fictional place in New Mexico in 1968.
Mm-hmm.
A boy is living with his uncle in a trailer on top of a mesa, and the uncle dies in a wildfire, fighting wildfires.
Mm.
And so the boy is left alone in the trailer with the uncle's partner or girlfriend named Molly. And together they kind of like just try to get by. She kind of struggles with, I think, whether to stay or not, or just hand him over to the proper authorities. But they end up just kind of making a life out of it with various, people who are there to make life more difficult than it already is for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much the book.
Wow, it sounds really interesting. I'll make sure I check it out.
I'll send you a copy.
I'd appreciate that. Great.
Yeah.
So what kind of writing do you prefer? Novel writing, poetry, or essays?
No. Novel writing is murder.
Yeah, it is.
The essays, I just find the essays, and it goes back to that puzzle aspect of it, just this kind of satisfaction. You're dealing with real events, so you don't have that strain of trying to conjure things from thin air.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of putting the right things in the right order. And so it just seems a little more, let's see, a little less strenuous than just the sheer,
mm-hmm.
Imaginative work of writing a story. It's really, really hard, and in every moment you're like, is that believable? Is this believable?
Mm-hmm.
Is just in my personal opinion,
I agree. I'm a novel writer, so I understand what you're saying. You got to keep notes, and you got to make sure you remembered this or that, or
yeah, yeah. And I wonder if you find it. Do you do other kinds of writing besides novel writing?
A little bit of essay writing, but I prefer fiction because I can get lost in make-up stories and make-up worlds.
Oh, there is that. There is that. When it's working well, that's a good feeling.
Yeah, it is. So, would you like to take a minute and read something for us from the rock cycle?
Sure. I can read, maybe I can read just the very first page here.
Okay.
This essay is called King Oedipus. It's the first essay. Arabian Desert, 1991. One night we got lost, running low on fuel, uncertain of our location respective of the border, far from base. We came across a Bedouin camp in the dark. Two men with Kalashnikovs emerged from a tent. Lieutenant Gerstenberger, 23 years old, recent graduate of West Point, stepped forward and asked the men if they knew of other soldiers in the vicinity, namely soldiers dressed like himself. By way of demonstration, he helpfully tugged at the sleeve of his uniform and gestured over his shoulder at us toward 5 figures in forest camouflage standing at the edge of the light. The nomads muttered among themselves. One man shook his head and repeated over and over a word we didn't understand. The tone, however, was plain enough, so we returned to our vehicles and drove off. The lieutenant was a decent man. He wasn't looking to make trouble. I wonder where he is these days.
You touch on the Gulf War once in a while, and I get the impression from the reading that it wasn't where you wanted to be or wanted to go.
Yeah, that's true. It was, it's still an experience that I try to make sense of.
Yeah.
And the essays, I think, helped me do that. I didn't experience anything overly traumatic
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that. But it was still, it was it was just strange
Yes.
to be shipped off and find yourself in the middle of the Arabian desert, and then one day there's a group of other people in slightly different uniforms,
Right.
and they commence to firing at each other. It's
Right.
strange. It's kind of bizarre if you overthink it.
And you definitely are a thinker. Just going to ask you why you titled, for example, that first essay, King Oedipus.
Well, that later on in that essay, the kind of the frame of it is bicycling in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and I had in my backpack at the time a book of Greek plays. I was reading that and the trilogy about Oedipus, and trying to make sense of it. At the same time, I was writing down those experiences from 1991. So I don't know. I don't know if they really tied in together, but something felt like they weren't incompatible,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure I can put my finger on why. But yeah, I just switched back and forth, kind of toggled between the Oedipus wandering around and this strange experience
Mm-hmm.
in the Arabian desert.
So your study of philosophy and the great works and your bicycling, it all helped inform one another in the writing of your essays. And therefore I'm guess what I'm getting at is that these go deep. These essays go deep. And clearly you gave a lot of thought to all of it. And one did inform the other, right?
Yeah, and I guess I could get away with going deep because I never imagined that anyone would ever read them. These were just things I read and I wrote, in the corner of libraries here and there. I never imagined that it would ever see the light of day. So that's kind of uninhibiting, that kind of frees me up to go wherever the idea has taken me.
So when you put this together, you had to do some backtracking to build your references and your works cited and all that, didn't you then?
Yeah, and thankfully, when I read, I take notebooks I read, and I keep a running document of excerpts that have to do with history or philosophy or any of the big topics that come up in the book. So I keep a document with excerpts that are all cited and page numbers and everything. So
Good.
I've never had to go back. I don't have a lot of books in my house or in my apartment, but I kept good records of everything that I read, and I just I keep them in sections. So if I'm on some topic and I need some ideas, I can go to that and see what so and so said about that, or so and so thought.
Well, that's pretty impressive. You're so ordered in that.
Yeah, I like to keep things that strike me. I don't know where that impulse came from, but I just didn't want to lose those
Right.
good thoughts from other people.
Well, in light of all of this and in your pedaling around and traveling in different parts of the world, why did you settle in Santa Fe?
I've been coming to New Mexico probably 4 or 5 different times over the past 40 years. Every time I came here, I just felt something almost like a burden falling off. I don't know what it was about just even crossing the state line. I could just breathe out a little bit here. I don't know why. I'm sure it's partly about the big sky and the mountains and the light. But there's just something, I don't know what else. It's just, so I just, in answer to your question, I was just looking for a reason to live here, and they're always hiring at the schools.
And you talk a little bit about, what is his name, Albert?
That's right, yeah, and that's a fake name that
Was that what helped you get started in your path to Sped teaching?
Yeah, that was during the first year of teaching special education, and he was one of in my case. And there was a woman in the community at Gallup who takes students to the Special Olympics in Albuquerque every year, and so I joined them for a couple of years, and that was always just an amazing experience. I learned a lot from people and kept a lot of notes just about the things I heard and saw, and things I thought about on those trips.
Yeah, and I like the way you've brought those in. And you talk about them as the athletes. I appreciated that too.
Yeah, the Special Olympics, I think it was canceled last year because of the pandemic, but it is a big deal for the students who participate. They train all year, at least at that school I was at.
Oh.
It's all year round, getting ready for the big weekend in Albuquerque in May. Yeah, it's a cool thing that they do.
It says here on the back, Honold is willing to let seep into the narrative of his damaged and healing life the works of philosophers and poets. Do you feel that you were damaged and healing?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was really, I never felt, that surprised me when I saw that. It's like, oh, I didn't want to come across as, no. So in answer, no, I didn't feel that at all.
Wait.
I thought these were just experiences that I thought would be kind of interesting to write about.
Yeah, and there's...
But no, I never felt damaged or in need of healing. I just haven't. So no.
I didn't see the damage either. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, I'm interested interesting that you noticed that, because that's the line that actually jumps out at me every time I think about this book, and it's almost kind of mortifying, but it's not that bad.
There you go. I guess that's the way the person saw it, and we'll let it
go. Do you think that the essays came across that way, or
I did
you
not?
Say you didn't?
No, I didn't feel there was damage and healing at all.
Yeah.
I felt that there was a growing, but not from damage at all.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that, Tracy. That makes my day.
Well, good.
I'm not damaged.
I'm glad to hear that. How many years did you say it took you to write all of these?
I guess about 12 years altogether.
Okay.
And of course, not working on it every day, but
right.
Over 12 years.
And it sounds like some of it was really birthed in a journal type form.
Possibly. I mean, I write longhand on pencil in a notebook, so it's kind of like journal-based writing, but I'm not sure. They just went from, paragraphs I'm jotting down in my notebook to finally typing it up, and I'm not sure if there was any kind of... Yeah, it's a good question. I really don't know whether there was some kind of journaling aspect to it or not.
It reads kind of like that, which is good. Now, what I wonder if you had... I'm sure that you had to pick and choose to put in this final collection. Was that also difficult? Is that part of the puzzle?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, there's some essays that didn't survive. Some that I submitted to literary journals, and they come back. If it was, sometimes you get notes back like there's not really any focus to this, or sometimes those were helpful and be like, okay, I'm going to just cannibalize this for parts for something else and put it away. And it's kind of an important habit to acquire, is being able to do away with, to get rid of things that just aren't working.
That's sometimes hard to do.
Yeah, especially because it's easy to kind of become enamored of certain things, if there's something proud of some imaginative language you used and you don't want to lose it, but maybe those ones especially, you gotta check them.
Like kill your darlings.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it is definitely to keep in mind.
Well, maybe there's enough that you can make another rock cycle 2.
Yeah, well, I have essays, almost enough for another collection. I'm just working on those now, and I'm not assuming this is ever going to see the light of day either, but strange things happen.
Evidently.
But even if there was no possibility of ever, I would still be doing these things just because they help, they keep me out of trouble.
There you go.
Just
it's what you do.
Good habit.
University of New Mexico Press picked this up and alerted me to this, so that's pretty notable.
Yeah, wow, they did such a wonderful job. I've looked through it, and the editor I had, her name was Miss Hoff, and she was just really incredible at not missing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Grammar, spelling, punctuation. She was just she had just a wonderful eye about making things smooth.
But keeping the heart of it there, because it's got heart.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it does. It does. And what about this great I guess it's a photo or something on the cover?
Yeah, I'm not. It looks like kind of a blowing sand, or maybe a sandstorm of some kind.
It looks like a sandstorm. That's what I had thought.
Yeah, and that's. I think they did a nice job on that. Yeah, they really. I don't know. I just felt humbled by the product that they created from those.
Yep, they did it on her.
Bunch of essays that I handed them. They made something really nice out of it.
I think there was something great to start with.
Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about this book, and I'm glad that you noticed that I'm not damaged.
Yes.
That's important.
I'm glad it brought it up.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate it.
And that was Kevin Honold talking about his book, The Rock Cycle, Essays. This is Tracy Hales Fast with Right On Four Corners on KSJE, the information and cultural beacon of the Four Corners in Farmington, New Mexico.
Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.